Holy smokes, everyone. First, BlackRock took billions of dollars in losses from the Evergrande situation that happened in China, where a $300 billion developer absolutely collapsed, and China's media is still trying to cover that up. But now they're taking billions of dollars of losses, and this is just the tip of the iceberg for what's happening in Russia right now. And people, we are now starting to get the information and the data to show exactly how much the US banks, the Western banks, are exposed to Russia and how much money they're losing, and how this could also possibly lead to another global financial crisis. So everyone, we got a lot to cover. This is a very important video. You better start paying attention right now. So let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Look at this, everyone. BlackRock funds just lost 17 billion due to Russia exposure, and that's just a tip of the iceberg, as Western banks are owed 121 billion by Russian entities. Well, everyone, we are finally starting to get the news and the data to see the situation we're really in. And we're also starting to see how this war is starting to affect everyone globally. We're all going to pay the price for this war, unfortunately, and it's looking like things are getting much worse for the global financial system and the banks. Listen to this. BlackRock funds have taken 17 billion losses as a result of its Russian exposure since Putin's invasion of Ukraine began in late February. And it's not only Western banks or asset managers set to take a sizable hit. International banks are owed roughly 121 billion by Russian-linked entities, according to data from the Bank of International Settlements. And because of the recent decoupling of the West and Russia, clients may not get most of their money back. That's exactly right, people. What are we seeing in Russia right now? Well, we're seeing their currency collapse 30% in a day. And that's why if you wait till it's too late to all of a sudden protect yourself from a currency collapse like what could possibly eventually happen one day, not saying anytime soon, in the West, like in a country like the US or Australia, if the US loses world reserve currency status, like you see there, if you wait too late, things can collapse very quickly. Like what we're seeing with Russia, with their currency collapsing 30% in a day. Not only this, they've actually closed the stock market. The stock market is closed. People and investors can't get their money out even if they wanted to. We've seen banks in Russia absolutely collapse, losing 95% of their stock value. And guess what? Many people in the West were actually exposed to these investments or had exposure through global ETFs. BlackRock's clients held around 18.2 billion in exposure to Russian-linked assets as of the end of January. The firm revealed the world's largest asset manager declined to break down its Russian assets for the Financial Times. Well, that is very interesting, everyone. They declined to show exactly how much exposure they really have. So could it even be worse, everyone? Could they have hundreds of billions in exposure? Well, only time will tell. Listen to this. iShares MSCI Russia ETF saw its value plummet from roughly 900 million at the end of 2021 to below 1 million this week. That's right, pretty much becoming worthless and losing over 95% of its value. In a LinkedIn post, Chairman and CEO Larry Fink said BlackRock was suspending all purchases of Russian securities among its index funds. But BlackRock, even though it is the biggest asset manager in the world, that is only one bank, only one entity, and is only just the tip of the iceberg. As banks across the US are forced to divest from Russian firms amid regulatory and licensing restrictions brought about by strict Western sanctions, Russian President Vladimir Putin also gave his country financial institutions permission to seize assets left behind by Western companies. So it's not only Western banks seizing Russian oligarchs' assets, also if Western people or if Western entities have assets in Russia, Russia's also seizing them as well, which is going to lead to more hits to the banks in the US. If foreign owners close a company unreasonably, then in such cases, the government proposes to introduce external administration. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin said in a statement, according to the Kremlin, depending on the decision of the owner, it will determine the future of the fate of the enterprise. But now let's have a look to see what other banks have been hit as well. Among US banks with largest exposure to Russia is Citigroup. The bank disclosed last week that it had roughly 10 billion in total exposure to Russia. In a statement on Wednesday, Citi said it was continuing previously announced efforts to exit our consumers' banking business in Russia and operating its business in the country on a limited basis. But wait, there's more. Goldman Sachs said it was also winding down exposure to Russian businesses last month. The bank had credit exposure of 650 million in Russia as of December 2021. But look what's happening with European banks now. European banks have revealed even more substantial ties to Russian businesses in the weeks since the invasion of Ukraine. Banks around Europe had a total total of 84 billion in claims from Russian entities as of late February, according to the Bank of International Settlements. Are you starting to see how the global financial system is all interconnected, people, and how if one institution goes down, just like in 2008, it has a domino effect on another institution? Because listen to this. Credit Suisse detailed 1.7 billion in exposure to Russian-linked entities. The Swiss bank was caught trying to shred evidence of its loans to Russian oligarchs. This is absolutely crazy, everyone, and we all knew that Credit Suisse was a bit dodgy, but this is absolutely crazy. They're going as far as trying to shed documents that they had loans to Russian oligarchs, backed by super yachts and private jets earlier this week. Despite the losses, European Central Bank Vice President said the financial system around Europe is not in danger of a liquidity crisis as damage to Europe's banks remain limited. Well, of course she's going to say that. When does a central banker ever tell us to worry or panic? They're always going to tell us, look, don't worry, everything's fine. Just like how they said, look, don't worry, everything's fine with Lehman, everything's fine with the banking system. Just like in 2008, it is their job to provide confidence in the banks. If they came out and said, look guys, everything looks really bad, it's looking like the banks could collapse tomorrow, guess what would happen? It would cause a bank run and a banking crisis. So they're never ever going to say how bad the situation really is. But everyone, what you're probably wanting to know is, okay, well, what does all this financial jargon mean for me in simple terms? Well, what this means is, everyone, we're starting to see it is not only affecting Russia, but it's affecting people all around the world with these higher oil costs, with these higher fuel costs, and now banks from the West and banks from Europe are now starting to take billions and billions of dollars in hits from these sanctions on Russia. And this is just after they've taken huge amount of hits from the situation with Evergrande and the Chinese property downturn that's happening in China right now with the property developers. And people, we can't take our eye off what's happening there as well. And unfortunately, there's been a media blackout and China's been trying to cover up how bad the housing market crash in China really is. But I don't know about you, everyone, but I'm definitely not going to be shedding any tears for BlackRock, especially after they've been outbidding US homeowners trying to get into the housing market. But everyone, that was just a quick update with what's happening with BlackRock, with what's happening with the banking system from the Russian fallout. What do you think? Let me know. Now, for all my loyal viewers and subscribers still watching, you're awesome. If you're interested and want to get up to 5 free stocks with Moomoo, worth all the way up to $3,500, I'll put a link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.